So we've captured Gigi and Evil Eye, now we just need to separate them. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to Season 2, Episode 5 of Dan to Dan. And last episode was pretty interesting. I've talked about this plenty of times in the past, but when I watch something, I'm giving my initial thoughts on it. Whether that be a show, a movie, something off YouTube, it's my initial first impression thoughts. Because when I'm reacting to it, that's all I've got. I don't really have the time to, process things as well. And so I can only give you what I think in that moment. And sometimes, when time passes, my thoughts change on things. Sometimes something I loved, like a huge amount, might be dialed back a little bit. I'm not going to, suddenly hate it. But my love for it will be dialed back a little bit. And I'll realize it's like, oh, I was going a little overboard. It was just, recency bias and everything. I've had time to think about it. There may be some issues here and there. It may not be perfect. Still like it, but yeah. And sometimes I'll, actually learn to like something a little more over time. With last episode of Dan to Dan, there was a lot going on. And there was a lot of, for lack of a better way to put it, fan service. Because remember, fan service is not just sexual. Fan service can be anything that, is there to appeal to the fans, and mainly just that in lieu of, logical placement in the story. It's a moment or scene or whatnot that is there specifically for the appeal of the fans. So last episode had a lot of that. With all these returning characters out of nowhere, these revelations, like with the BooTuber guy being the student of Granny Seiko, and just so much more. There's also, of course, the moment of at the very end with Ogrun and Momo's hug and the cuteness behind it and just how much it meant. There's a lot of greatness to that. And I believe when I reacted to the last episode, my thoughts kind of centered around all of this just being thrown in and it feeling like it was just going in a direction that I was not expecting, and that felt kind of random. I think the way I put it is, I was expecting something to happen, and that didn't happen. And that in and of itself is not an issue. But it feels like the actual thing was setting up for something to happen that didn't occur. And that's more of an issue, because it feels like what actually happened did come out of nowhere. And what it was setting up to happen just didn't happen. And I believe I mentioned the idea that, maybe the creators were doing this to throw us off. Maybe, assuming this was how it was in the original manga, and I have since seen, manga scans of these scenes, this is what happened, completely. My thought was, okay, maybe they were setting something up and then changed it for the purpose of throwing us off, because this series would do something like that. It's Dan to Dan. It would absolutely mess with the viewers, the readers. And so I'm thinking, that could be something that's going on here. But there could also be other explanations and ideas. And so I knew I would need to watch this again, like to really get a good feel for it. And since last week, I've obviously seen it multiple more times, and I've thought about it. And I still feel that there is a lot that is just thrown at us really suddenly. And that there's not really any setup to what we actually get. There's nothing that sets up the idea that the VTuber guy is Seiko's student. There's nothing to make us think that Taro will arrive. Nothing to make us think that Mantis Shrimp guy will, and his son will come. And it just, again, it seems to set up the idea that, like, Gigi will connect with Evil Eye, and that will be the resolution of this. And that might still happen. Because I've come to think, with Gigi being captured at the end, although that was clearly the end to the arc, it's not the end to the story. And this is something that, like, feels obvious, but it was something that, like, my mind just wasn't going into at the time, because I was so overwhelmed by everything happening. But it's like, while that arc technically might be done, this story is continuing. And I more than assume we're going to get the follow-up in this episode. We're going to see how Gigi and Evil Eye are separated, and we're going to, like, continue from where we left off. And that's important, because that changes kind of my views on this. Not by a huge amount, but by enough. Because the goal there wasn't defeating Evil Eye. Because Evil Eye's not defeated. And I don't think he's gonna be like this. I think the goal here kind of goes in line with what I was thinking was gonna happen to a degree, but not in the way I was expecting. I think the goal here is to save Evil Eye. Except it's not... I feel like Gigi is going to have a major role to play in it, but I feel like it's also not going to be just him. I feel like part of the point with this is going to be, like, the entire friendship angle. Because that was something that Evil Eye always wanted, friends. And Gigi is, like, great for that, but having others helping him with this will kind of nail in that point a little more. So that's what I'm thinking is going to happen. Okaroon, Momo, maybe even Seiko, and if we're lucky, Ira, they're going to befriend Evil Eye. Kind of in the same way that they've been doing with Turbo Granny. Even if Turbo Granny's being a tsundere about it. But that's going to be the idea, and I think that that's going to help more than what my plan or what my thoughts were. But we'll have to see. Now, I still do think that there was a lot going on in the last episode, and I do still think that there wasn't a lot of setup for pretty much anything that we had. But I'm a little more receptive to things now. And I'm more, like, willing to accept it. And I just needed time. This is why we don't binge shows. This is why it's good to take time between episodes. It allows you to think, it allows you to process, It allows you to fully like grasp an episode. If you binge through it, you don't get the opportunity for that. I can tell you right now, if I were binging through this season, if like the entire season were released and I binged through it, that would have been a black spot on the episode. I wouldn't have had time to really process and like realize my thoughts on that, because I would have just kept moving on to the next episodes, and that would have taken my attention to a degree, and it's like it wouldn't have worked the same. So I'm glad that I have more proof that binging sucks. But either way, in all seriousness, I am genuinely really glad that I got the opportunity to really think about that. Because it genuinely did allow me to see this in a little bit of a different light. And that's always a good thing. So I'm excited to see what happens next. I'm excited to see what they do with Gigi and Evil Eye. So let's get into it and find out. Hold up just a sec. Before you click that link down in the description below to get to today's video, I want to remind you of all the awesome content we have both on this channel and the Princess of Gaming channel. Let's check it out. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, everybody has talked about this. Like, this is, if someone's a Dan to Dan fan, they have brought this up. And this is not going to be, like, revelatory information or anything. And I might have even mentioned it myself in Season 1. But it's still so wild to me how sometimes the best episodes or moments of this series have nothing to do with the action, the alien stuff, the paranormal stuff in general. The best parts of this series tend to be the more slice of lifey, fun stuff. The things that are more related to character development, to Momo and Okarun's relationship, to how all of these different characters interact with each other. I think one of the best examples from Season 1 was the episode where, you know, Momo and Okarun are dealing with their newfound feelings and, like, trying to find each other, like, during lunch and everything, and they have the accidental kiss. That episode was so good because it was focusing on the depths and interactions of these characters. It was tackling what they had come to mean to each other after the crazy events that they had gone through, involving all the aliens that they had faced up to that point, and Turbo Granny. But it felt like a big deal. And not surprisingly, I believe that was also the episode that introduced us to Ira, who is my favorite character. And I don't know how popular of an opinion that is, because I know people just adore the shit out of Momo and Okarun. But Ira just has this energy to her, you know? She just has this, like, this aura that just makes her, like, really amazing to me. Plus, her episode was the best episode of the show, easily. And again, not because of the crazy supernatural stuff or the action or anything. Ira's episode was the best because of the flashback sequence with Acrobatic Silky. The flashback with Acrobatic Silky and everything, the emotion, the humanity behind it, that's what made it so fucking good. That's what made so many people cry, including myself. And that's what made it one of the highest rated episodes of anime ever. And that's what this series, I think, does best. Like, the action, the supernatural stuff, the shonen fun is all fantastic. We love that stuff, too. But while you can get into the fighting, the absurdity, the supernatural elements, the stuff that really, at least for me, keeps me fully invested in this show is the character moments. And there were a good amount of them in this episode. Gigi going back to being his weird, cringy self is really fucking charming. Like, this is a character you would think would be super fucking annoying, would be unbearable to watch. But it's like, they put so much effort into making you fall in love with him and seeing the depths behind his character. And even why he acts this way. To where it's like, at the point where you just love him. And you want to see him act like a goofy cringelord. Because that's who he is. And it's just like, it's the same as wanting to see Momo and Ira at odds with each other. You want to see Ira, like, be kind of a bitch towards Momo. Because it's her way of kind of showing affection towards Momo. Because you absolutely know she cares for Momo. She won't admit it. She'll never admit it. But she does. And obviously, her fawning over Okarune at every given chance. You have Turbo Granny focusing on, like, the dumbest, most inconsequential shit that she just likes because of the comforts of it. Just all these little character moments. But the best moment of this episode was unquestionably the car scene. Momo, like, playing around with Okarune's hand was so fucking perfect. Because it's like, this is obviously representative of the scene in the opening, where it shows, like, we're seeing through Okarune's eyes, and we're seeing him look at Momo in the car. And we get to see, like, this different angle now that we're not looking through Okarune's eyes. Because in the opening, it almost looks like she's not necessarily being dismissive of him, but she seems kind of out of it. She seems kind of like she's just not fully there, and it's like you almost feel bad for Okarune at that point in the opening. But then you see it from this angle. You see it from the angle of the viewer rather than Okarune himself. And you realize, no, she's just being super cute and shy because she's really, really coming to realize her feelings for him. Like, the end of last season with Taro and everything showed Okarune really coming to terms with his feelings for her. And this was that exact same moment. Remember at the end of season 1 where it's like Taro is exclaiming his love for Hannah in the junkyard and everything? You see Okarune look at them and, like, just be inspired by that. It was such an amazing moment. And this is that scene for Momo. After everything that happened, after, like, the fear of losing Okarune had engulfed her, and her reaction to him being alive, just hugging him so, like, lovingly, this is the moment where she's truly coming to terms with the fact that she loves him. When he shies away from, like, their hands touching, she tells him it's okay to put his hand back, and she starts playing with it lovingly and gently. And they're only interrupted because of Gigi being Gigi. But it's this cute, beautiful moment that just shows how far they've come in their connection with each other since the beginning of the series. Like, those were the actions of someone who is like super fucking in love. Like, I'm not always great with that. I will admit I'm not always the best at recognizing love and flirting and stuff. Um, Partially because of my autism, I'm not great at like recognizing facial signals or other body signals that people make in that regards. But there's some times where I can tell. And let's be honest, partially because I've been told that those are certain signals. I've like heard other people talk about that. And so I've learned to recognize them a little more because of that, which is actually pretty cool. That I've kind of like studied to learn how like what flirting is. But in all seriousness, like the way she was touching his hand is like aggressively flirting. It's like it's not even subtle. But the thing is, I don't think she's like fully like into it yet. You know what I mean? I think it's still at this point where Momo is still like kind of unsure, and that's realistic. That's believable. She's at that point where she's like just starting to realize her feelings, like really realize them, and it's new for her. And like she had a partner before with that asshole at the beginning of episode 1. But although she's had a partner and she's had other people she's liked, like Gigi when she was a kid, like this is her first true love. And it's being made more and more clear. So that scene just really just they absolutely nailed that. And this is hear me out. I this is another example of a scene in a series that I feel backs up my claim that the anime is always better. Because of things like the animation and direction and um, music and everything. That scene absolutely would not have hit as hard without the visual motion of her fingers intertwining with his. Like, yeah, you can like read a manga, look at a still frame and imagine it. But it's not the same. Seeing the motion, hearing the music that's playing with it, hearing the way that they're talking and just like being very timid and nervous with each other in that moment. Everything paired together to make that scene as good as it was. And this is something that still images with manga just can't do, in my opinion. They just don't have that same power to them. At least not for me. If you can get that kind of feeling, if you can get that vibe, that emotion from still images, all the power to you. But I have tried my best and I cannot. And again, that goes even for manga where it's like those same moments in the anime have made me like cry like really hard. It's just one of those things where it's like my mind doesn't work that way. I need the animation. I need the music. I need the voice acting. But I mean, everybody's different, so. I also love like some of the other little things in this episode, like Ira falling in love with Chiquitita. Super adorable. And I love how easy it was. She's like, hey, didn't I tell you guys to leave this planet and never come back? Tell sad story very briefly. And she's like, oh, I love you. You're so cute. You're the best. I love Ira so goddamn much. And Chiquitita is fucking adorable. Like, that's just fact. But I like how Gigi's transformation is now being, like, given the Ranma 1/2 treatment. If you've never seen Ranma 1/2, Basically, the idea is that Ranma Saotome fell into a cursed spring, and so whenever he's splashed with cold water, he turns into a girl. And then whenever female Ranma, or Ranko, as a lot of the fans call her, is splashed with hot water, she turns back into male Ranma. It's a classic series. It's from the same creator as Urusei Yatsura and multiple others. It has a lot of issues. It's a series that's not always great. One big issue I have with it is that it very much sexualizes minors, and you know my thoughts on that. But it does it in a more satirical way, which does help. As I've stated before, satire, it's like it's trying to send a message, make a statement. So it's like it's a little more acceptable than something that's trying to take it seriously. Like when you have like the fan service in something like Kill la Kill, or even My Dress Up Darling, it's like this isn't being treated as satire or like comedy, or it's not being treated like in Dan to Dan, where it's like, oh, these characters, when they're like shown being assaulted, it's very much made clear it's not a good thing and stuff like that. But with stuff like Ranma One Half, it kind of bridges the gap. It's like it's very clearly a comedic, satirical anime, well, and manga, but it's kind of weird. It's kind of creepy. But there's also a lot of fun stuff with the series too. There's a lot of fun moments. But yeah, it gets really weird. Like there's especially like this one character I kind of hate. He's like this old man character, and he's constantly lusting after female Ranma, who by the way is 15 years old. Yeah, not a fan of that. Not a fan of that at all. Um, so yeah, I mean it's like I'm okay with like moments where it's like there's like connection in that way between like Ranma and Akane because they're both about the same age, or like the other like kids characters who are around that same age too. It's like that's fine, but it's like there's moments where like the adults get creepy towards them, and it's weird. And I know it's like it's an older manga, and the original anime is older. There's a newer rebooted anime that came out recently. But it's like it's one of those anime that kind of skirts the edge for me. It's like there's certain bits of it that are really weird, and certain bits of it that are like, fairly good. And you do take into account that it is mostly satirical. So that does help, but not completely. It still gets kind of weird. Um and then they're going back to the point here, because I kind of got off topic and started talking about a completely different series. Um, with the splashing of the water being how Gigi transforms one way or the other, or not even water, just any liquid, as we saw with the soy sauce at the end. I feel like this is something that definitely needs to be figured out as quickly as possible. It's such a difficult weakness to have at the moment. And considering at the end of the episode that single drop of soy sauce allowed Evil Eye to come out, I still think that Gigi is going to be able to get through to Evil Eye. I still think that's the case. Because it's kind of being made clear right now by Seiko that they don't really, and Turbo Granny as well, that they really don't have a chance against Evil Eye. Evil Eye's powers are like way too strong. And so they really do have to rely on resolving this. And they're like talking about an exorcism, but this series isn't like that. This series goes out of its way to make a big point of like all of these yokai not being evil, but rather being either hurt themselves and being like transformed by negative emotions because of it, or trying to help someone else who's hurt, in the case of like Turbo Granny. It's like they're not evil. They're just fucked up. And they've been fucked up by a terrible world. Remember, Turbo Granny was so protective over the spirits of these raped and murdered young girls, and it's kind of made her like aggressive and mean and violent towards people because of it. Obviously, Acro Silky's entire situation was fucked beyond belief. And look what it turned her into. And we saw what happened with Evil Eye too. The horrific shit like he had to go through. Even after having already died by being burned at the stake by who we now know is a subterranean and not even a person, and who knew that the fucking worm wasn't a god the entire time. Fuck. Why couldn't they have stayed dead? I really fucking hate the Ketos. I mentioned this like the past episodes. But now I guess we know why they couldn't stay dead, because they're going to be a recurring threat. Or at least Mama Keto is, who, again, might be the only one who's a subterranean. It's not made clear at the moment. But for sure, she is. And she's going to be a recurring threat, a recurring villain. They're setting that up here. That's really interesting. I'm very curious to see how that ends up going down. But, yeah, this episode kind of coming back after all of that craziness that this season started out with, being, you know, a continuation of the end of the first season. Having us come back into the swing of things by, like, having this kind of downtime episode until the very end. Also reintroducing Ira and just, like, getting back into things. Even having Muko and Miko come back. We saw Ira's friends as well. It's like we're getting kind of reacquainted with the world outside of that arc. And I think that's, like, really good. I think that's really important to do. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this episode. I'm so happy that we're back to all of this, and I'm excited to see what comes next. So tell me in the comments below what you thought of this episode of Dan Dan Season 2. And as always, no spoilers. I go into these episodes as blind as possible, and I don't want to know what's going to happen ahead of time. So don't spoil me on any future episodes if you've read the manga. And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.